Death. It's one of those things that's just inevitable in life. Hell, it's even inevitable in your fantasy game. Well, I guess that is unless you play one of the many characters that, once you get high enough level, just can't die. Today on Fraudonthetele, we're talking about the most powerful tool in evoking roleplay, death. As always, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out some of our D&D and Critical Role content. Let's get right into it, shall we? Just a note, this video will contain spoilers for Campaign 3 of Critical Role, so consider yourself warned. Death is probably one of the most important aspects in your D&D campaign. Mainly the threat of death. See, the threat of death and losing your character is, in a lot of ways, what adds the base level stakes to any D&D adventuring game. But oftentimes I find that many DMs, especially newer DMs, are afraid to kill their players. Now, when I say kill your players, what I really mean is presenting your players with an adequate enough challenge that could result in death. That's a lot different from just setting your characters up for failure and just absolutely murdering them, massacring them. What's happened on Critical Role Campaign 3 over the last month plus is a perfect example of this, as Matt presented his players with a very tough combat challenge, ultimately resulting in one permanent player character death while the rest were revived. This then spindled off a crazy side arc to resurrect this character, Laudna, ultimately resulting recently in her resurrection, and then subsequent another death of an important NPC to the party. Of course, anytime a character dies on a show like Critical Role, any bigger D&D show, it's going to be a big deal. There's going to be sections of the fan base who call for the revival, while the sections of the fan base that get upset about the revival or possibly get upset about the nature of the revival. But I just want to focus on the death here for a second. Death is something that many D&D players probably don't experience a lot. I guess it really depends on your D&D campaign and really, I guess, how you play your character. If you're one that's a little bit risky, maybe you've gone through a number of characters. But death as a DM when trying to lead your players on a story is one of those things that is probably the most powerful roleplay you can do, one of the most powerful roleplay tools that you can give to your players. Let's just look at Campaign 3 of Critical Role. Upon Laudna's death to Otahan, the entire aspect of the party, their goal, their mission, completely diverted from these big world-changing events to reviving their friend. This ultimately resulted in a Campaign 1 crossover that the fans have been basically begging for since Campaign 1 ended, and a whole slew of character dynamics and interpersonal roleplay that kind of erupted from the controversy of this character's resurrection in the world. Ultimately, Laudna herself undergoing one of the biggest kind of character changes upon her arrival in supposed cleanse of the big bad evil lady Delilah. According to Marisha, Laudna herself has basically hit the reset button in a lot of ways. Just look at all of the roleplay that this death has generated. As well, think of the impact that the antagonist Otahan now has upon the party. The party now know just how much of a threat she is, as well as her intrinsic links with one of the other characters, Imogen. She becomes quite the scary prospect. Up until now in Campaign 3, there really hasn't been a primary antagonist, a big, bad, evil guy in a classic sense. There's a bunch of foes lurking in the shadows, and while Otahan herself has been kind of the antagonist for a while now, we really just didn't know that much about her. There was no super reason to dislike her, well, until recently. Now, my hat's off to Matthew here for handling this whole situation extremely well, in my opinion. It's funny, too, because the cast almost botched the resurrection on Laudna, but wow, would it have been an amazing amount of roleplay, even if at the end of the day it wasn't, I guess, technically worth it, or their goal wasn't achieved. The roleplay in and of itself and all of the crazy events and stories and the impact on the characters is more than good enough. As well, like you said, this increases the impact that Otahan as the primary antagonist has on the party. They're going to be scared of her, and they're going to respect her, and the next time they tangle with her, they're going to come at things way differently. I really implore a lot of DMs out there, especially if you're a newer DM, don't be afraid to challenge your characters in combat or present them with difficult situations that could result in player character death. Obviously, if you've discussed these things beforehand and they know what they're getting into, you definitely need to take into consideration the revivification magic that the party has, as well as their potential access to revival when you present them with these challenges. But if they have the tools at their disposal, you shouldn't be afraid as a DM to present your characters with an adequate challenge that could result in the player character death, especially when that player character death, whether the character wants their character revived or not, is going to leave a lasting impact on your game. If you watch any D&D streams, you'll know that a character's death in a game kind of forever imprints them upon the story. They become almost like enshrined in the story and the rest of the party itself. This has happened in a number of my games that I've either played in or ran, where the game has gone on for a bit, the party begins to grow attached in character, possibly even out of character, and then all of a sudden, tragedy happens and one of the player character falls and they can't be rezzed, or maybe they choose to want to move on to a new story. That character death almost always has a drastic impact on the rest of the party. Their interpersonal dynamics, how they act with one another, their bond, all of this usually gets strengthened after a player character death, especially if it's like a substantive one. Player character death in many ways is one of the greatest gifts of roleplay you can give to a party, because imagine the effect that it will have on all of the other players and their characters at the table. Now, like I reiterated at the beginning, I'm not advocating for murking all of your players out here. At the end of the day, this is just a game, and I firmly hate DMs who do the whole DM versus player stance. It's collaborative storytelling. So as long as you're responsible with the powers that you have vested in you as a DM, then I think presenting your players with a tough challenge, possibly even the prospect of death, is something that is very good. It's good for the players, it's good for the story. If they complete the challenge and no one dies, then they can really feel like they earned that victory, which at the end of the day is kind of our job as a dungeon master. It is to tell this collaborative story, to present your friends and players with challenges for them to potentially overcome or possibly fall and then get back up and do it again. Let me know in the comments down below, have you guys been in a game and had a player character at the table die and it's left a lasting impact on your party? Do you guys agree with me on the amount of roleplay that player character death, or just death in D&D in general, can provide? While Laudna was revived, it was almost kind of a give and take, like we said in our past episode breakdown, where Laudna is revived, and in many sense at a cost of it came Esteros. Matt said in Foresighted Dive that this was just kind of a logical step because Otahan knew about Esteros, who was supporting this group that seems to be actively trying to sabotage her, so of course she's going to go and take care of it. But there is kind of an irony in the thought that they do all of this work, Esteros helps them to bring their friend back, only to lose him. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Just some thoughts that I had about death, D&D, and everything going on in Campaign 3 lately, and just how impactful and good it's been. As always, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Peace of Adu.